I think you're really going to enjoy this next panel discussion. We all know that getting that first cybersecurity job can be kind of tricky, but this isn't just a one-time thing. Most of us will probably apply for new jobs several times throughout our career, and that's why it's really important to understand what the people reviewing our applications, the recruiters and the hiring managers, are really looking for, and how to help yourself stand out from the crowd. And who better to talk about that than actual recruiters and hiring managers? So let me introduce Caroline Carter. Caroline's done a lot of work with professional development and student success programs even before coming to SANS, and she's currently managing the career services team for the SANS Technology Institute. So Caroline, I'll let you do the introductions for your panelists, but thank you for putting all this together. And also thanks very much to all of our panelists for talking today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to bring this group to all of our summit attendees. As I was introduced, as David introduced me, my name is Caroline Carter. I'm the manager of career services at SANS.edu, which is the academic wing of SANS. I work with our students there who are also new to cyber and helping them get employed. As part of that work, I have the privilege of working with some of these wonderful hiring managers and recruiters who hire our graduates. They have the best advice for getting hired, since they are the ones looking at your resume, deciding if they would like to bring you on board or not. So I would like to let them actually introduce themselves in a brief sort of who you are, how you got there, and how you hire people in this space. We'll start out with Terry. Throw it over to you. If we can get unmuted. There we go.
Can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me? Cool,
Yeah.
cool. All right, so quickly, sorry, I took the extra time with the microphone issues. My name is Terry Bazemore Jr., CEO at i3 Technologies. We're a system engineering and cybersecurity firm located in Prince George's County, Maryland. Sorry, the gorgeous Prince George's County, Maryland. And I'm gonna give a quick shout out to Hutch Studios, the incubator that we graduated from in 2020, doing some great work in Baltimore, helping us to make that happen. So to sum it up quickly, right, I will call my story How I Got into Cyber by Accident. And when it becomes a movie, I want Michael B. Jordan to play me, right? You know, so it started pretty much in graphic design. I sucked at that. I went into finance. I was pretty good, did some data analysis and auditing stuff. I was pretty good with that part. And so a quick pivotal career moment was while doing the auditing work, I had to go through like 30,000 lines of like data and find some information. And I wrote a script to help me out. My manager loved it and said, hey, this is great. You should go into this thing called cybersecurity. And so I'm like, oh, let me check it out. Looked at it and never left, right? And so shout out a couple companies that played a key role in my process of growing in cyber. Lockheed Martin really helped me grow my career. A big impact to Securicon, a small penetration testing company based out of Virginia. Another small company, CNF Technologies, based out of Texas. Did some really cool work with them. And now i3 Technologies, the greatest company in the world with the greatest CEO ever. Her name is Summer Bazemore, who happens to also be my wife. And as you can see, you know, saying I went from graphic design into finance into cyber, the nonlinear path, you know, and if I could do that, I know a lot of other people could do it too. And hopefully I, along with my great panel, can do some great, get some great tips on how we can do that today.
Absolutely. And we'll take it over to Kevin next.
I'm Kevin Bordelmay. I'm senior recruiting manager over at Mandiant. Maybe a little shorter path. I started in sales, but I've been recruiting for a very long time at this point. And in cyber, probably for about 10 years. I kind of got hooked on the bug pretty early. And when I had a candidate actually confuse me with an ArcSight engineer, I figured, all right, I got the right path here at the moment. So focused on that. And I do a lot with our intern and entry level roles over here. I will safely admit I sneak into every red team training they let me sneak into because the stuff is fascinating, especially that and industrial controls. I will watch that stuff all day long. That stuff is fun.
Awesome. Wilfredo.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline, and thank you, SANS, for having us on today. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. Yeah, my name is Wilfredo Santiago. I'm the Director of Threat Operations for Blackpoint Cyber. My background is sort of, I guess, traditional for most people. I was trained formally via the military. The United States Navy is really where I learned my craft. I had the benefit of joining a development program at the National Security Agency where I really honed my craft. And ever since then, I've left the government and decided to make my way into the private sector. So I've gone through various positions in the private sector, different roles. So I hope that I can share a lot of my experiences along the way of how I navigated my way to where I am today. But happy to be here. Thank you all.
Wonderful. And last but certainly not least, Maureen.
I'm surrounded by greats. So even with least, I think I'd still be doing pretty well with this group. My background is actually originally in workforce development. I started with transitioning veterans and applied to a position at SANS a couple of years ago and got bit by the bug. Absolutely fell in love with the work I got to do there, developing new talent. And the opportunity came for me to move over to Dragos, which is an ICS startup, to help build out our internship programs and work on general recruiting. So absolutely love cybersecurity. Won't ever be technical. I really love all of those things. Wilfredo, Terry, and even Kevin sitting in on the pen testing side. I focus more on candidates and the candidate experience in my role, and really excited to hear what they have to say and hopefully learn a few things and add my 2 cents.
Excellent. To our attendees, I will say we have a list of hot topics that we want to make sure and ask this wonderful panel. But if you have burning questions, please utilize the panel hiring managers Slack space. As there are questions that perhaps a lot of people have, we'll try and make those into this panel and elevate those questions to the top of our list. So to kick us off, we would love to know from you as hiring managers, what gets a resume to the top of your stack for entry-level positions? And if somebody steals your answer, I would love for you to chime in with what gets a resume to the bottom of the stack. What are the no-nos? Take it away, whoever wants it first.
I'll start off. I'll say this, like, I won't speak for all the hiring managers, but I'll say I know for myself, being a small company, limited time, right? You know what I mean? So you are on a crunch to do other jobs and other things as well. And so being able to find somebody quickly is important. So anytime a candidate can map direct experience to the rec, one, it shows you read it, which is one whole other issue. But then 2, it also helps us to quickly highlight how you qualify and help tell the story on your behalf, right? So if we have to talk to a customer or someone else, say, hey, we got somebody, we can say, here's exactly how they map to that experience, right? So somebody who can tell a great story in a resume, but clearly highlighting and mapping areas that match to the actual job rec would be what I was saying.
Yeah, I would chime in with that. Recently, we had an internship position open and I had to leave it. I had to take it down after 24 hours because I received over 300 resumes. And that's one of up to 20 recs that a recruiter may have open at any time. And some recruiters have up to 70. So really, it's about tailoring that experience and give me a reason to talk to you. I probably go a little bit more in depth because I want you to be good. And the recruiter and the hiring manager, they're your biggest cheerleaders. They want you to be great. We want to have the best people for the role, and the more great people we have, the more excited we are. So make it easy and make sure that you are not sending out just some standardized template that you've done a million times. Like, take the time and throw the tool sets that they're asking for if you have some of those, or include some of your home lab experience or projects that you worked on, especially for these entry-level roles when a lot of people may be coming out of a boot camp or university. You can be relatively similar. So tell me the other things you're doing and what gets you excited.
Yeah, and if I can just add on to what Mo said there, I also have a requisition, which we received like over 70 applications in 24 hours. And one thing that I realized as I was going through these resumes was it was very difficult for me to read through paragraphs of statements, right? Really highlight on your high impact sort of capabilities, the things that you've done. If you saved X amount of money, add those high impact bullets to the top of the list versus your day-to-day, I check my emails 24 times a day. That's not necessarily relevant to the position, but more of, I check my emails 24 times a day that results in me decreasing the workload for this functionality, because those are real impact statements. And I think that's where, just adding text versus impact statements really comes into play.
Yeah, I think pivoting on both of those, keep in mind as a recruiter, you talk about how many resumes we see. Your resume only gets 20 to 30 seconds. I wish it was more, but that might be all it gets. You got to get our attention. So whether that is something unique that separates you from other candidates, or like Wilfredo was saying, something that's an impact. Talk about impact rather versus day to day. And the other thing I will say is put the most interesting thing you've done at the top of your resume. I should not go 4 paragraphs down to find out you do this really cool thing. Catch my attention early, because you keep my attention. That's how we stay in the conversation.
While we are on the topic of resumes, I see several questions come in about career changers coming from a completely unrelated field, and or people who have done cyber work that is not necessarily paid. They've done learning on their own, they've done capture the flags, they've done courses on their own, but haven't worked in the field. What's your best advice on branding yourself, one, coming from an unrelated field, and then also doing and representing those things that were not necessarily a paid cyber experience?
I'll jump in quick first. I will seriously put it all on there, please. For the love of God, put it all on there. The home labs, the CTFs, the hackathons. We want to see that, because as we look at candidates, we want to see the diversity and see you've actually gone above and beyond to gain additional experience. That, more than anything, is critical to us. If you've gone and taught yourself how to program a language on the side, if you've built some tool on the side, that's awesome. That's the stuff we want to see. That's what gets our attention, is that diversity of experience that's out there. And we always talk about the amount of experience you have. That's experience, whether it's paid or not. That is still experience that shows what you've learned, and highlight that. Make it front and center if it's what's important to you and what's in there. But make sure we have details. If you went and you said, "Hey, I developed this tool," don't give me the name just of the tool. Tell me what it does. Tell me why it's relevant and why I should be interested in what you did and why I want to talk about it. And I will reiterate the home labs. I love the home labs every time, guys. Put them on there. Do them. If you haven't done a home lab out there, there's a lot of great resources on how to create one. It is the best thing to get experience.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my biggest benefits when I'm looking at resumes. I'm seeing people who have home labs, people who have created their own code, people who have GitHub repositories, even if it's a simple script just to look for text files. That's fine, because that shows me that you have the knowledge and the application of all these different toolkits, because that's DevOps, that's security, and really cybersecurity is a fusion of all these IT operations, backgrounds that are really coming together to make security, relevant. But all that sort of stuff that you might be doing, if you're building a simple website, you're editing HTML, JavaScript, all that sort of stuff is relevant. And I think oftentimes people think, well, I'm not protecting against an APT, so it's not relevant for my resume. But the reality is the work that you are doing is relevant to detecting an APT. You just don't know it. You probably haven't applied it in that sort of position yet.
Yeah, I would echo everything they're saying. And I would also, if you have done coursework and have projects from your coursework, it doesn't always have to be a home lab or an extra, although we really, really like to see that. See everybody nodding, extra is good. But detail some of the things you've done in your coursework as well. So we don't know what you learned in your course. I didn't take that course. So you can't expect a hiring manager or a recruiter to read between the lines in that 20 seconds. Quite frankly, we just don't have the time, even if we wanted to. So add in that extra. Make me want to talk to you. Tell me about why you're excited, or even if you did a small portion of a group project, highlight that. Tell me what you learned from that and what the outcome was. Don't just say you did something, say what the end result was on all of those bullet statements.
Man, I gotta go first next time, because y'all are taking all the good answers, right? No, but seriously, that's echoing everything everybody said. But I'll say this. We live in a time where technology is great, right? We have TikTok, we have Instagram, you have YouTube, you got Facebook, you got LinkedIn. Make some videos, whatever. Like, if I can look and find you out there that you've already been talking about threat intelligence for the past 3 weeks, 3 months, even, it shows that you have a level of knowledge about this topic and that you are going above and beyond, doing the home labs, doing the CTS, but it's also a step above a lot of other people, right? You're now actually becoming a thought leader and a voice out there. And a quick pro tip, right? I'll just say this, right? In cybersecurity, it is super great to be sought after versus being the seeker, right? So you kind of can flip the tables to where now we're looking at you like, how do we get them to our company? That's a brand, We want that to be associated with us, right? And so you then become a thought leader out there in that area. And I would say definitely look at utilizing YouTube and other things to become a thought leader.
While we were talking about home labs, I see lots of questions about that. Kevin just dropped a great resource in the chat. There are some other great resources out there that we will make sure to add to the Slack a little bit later today for those who want to follow up on that one. Seeing several questions about the dynamics of this experience, these CTS projects, certifications, and degrees or education. What is most important in your eyes, and what do you look for in your candidates?
I'm going to hop on that one really quick because I feel really strongly about this one. So we love seeing any work that you have done, but we also recognize that there are barriers in place for educations, for certification. All of those things take time and money, and nothing is going to show up as strongly as someone that takes their own initiative to go out and learn these things. So yes, some positions, especially if they're federal government or something similar, may require certification. That's law or policy. We can't change that. But for a lot of the entry-level positions, you'll see, and you'll find hopefully at Dragos, we require none. So quick company plug, because I have to. You will see, of course, that what we care about is that you've taken the time to learn these skills. And when someone asks you a somewhat technical question, if you can answer it, that's what's really going to stand out. So yes, take every advantage you can to learn anything you can, but don't let time or income be a barrier to you pursuing this field.
Yeah, and to add on to that, also at Blackpoint Cyber, we don't require certifications as a prerequisite for onboarding. It is something that we don't want to diminish. If you've taken that certification, we definitely will explore that. But we recognize, like Maureen said, there's issues with people getting funding for some of these courses that are very expensive. And the reality is, you can learn a lot of the skills that I'm looking for on YouTube. Like what Terry said, there's people out there who are putting out great content on how to do reverse engineering, how to do malware analysis, threat hunting, things of that sort. And it's all free information. If you can consume that data and then, concisely read it back or explain it in an interview, that sort of holds more weight than someone who has X amount of certifications next to their name, in my opinion.
And I would take it one step forward. We're talking about certifications. It's also degrees as well. You don't need to have a 4-year degree to work in cyber. You don't even have to have an associate. You can come right out of high school and gain experience in there. There's different paths to get here. And I think it's one thing that, as new to cyber, be aware of. There's a lot of different ways to get where you want to be. There's no straight path, which is probably the best part about cyber, honestly.
Dang it, I'm last again. So taking into all that everybody said, right? I want to echo just on what Kevin just said at the end of that. There are so many different paths, what I mean? And I think that we kind of mysticize cyber a lot of times. We act like the ones and zeros are these magical things that are hopping off of the screen or whatever, whereas as Wilfredo said, what Kevin said, and even Maureen, you're saying whatever, there are so many different aspects and ways in which you can get into this field. And I would say utilize all of them. If finance is not on your side, and I understand that certs are expensive, time, like as Maureen said, is a thing that's not on everybody's side by any means. You can definitely do some self-study and find other people who are smarter in it, at the time to teach you. And then again, like, don't be afraid to actually even build your own content, because that's also going to be a way that you learn as well.
And to wrap up resumes, I know there are tons of questions, but I'm going to try and get a lot of questions into one answer. What is your top tip for resume logistics? So I'm talking about format. What template should you use, if you should use a template? Wink, wink. Maureen, you and I have talked extensively about that one. What is the top thing that you want to make sure resumes do or do not look like when they land on your desk?
I can jump in first. Keep it simple. Don't make it fancy, because what's going to happen is 9 times out of 10, the applicant tracking system that the company is using is going to take all your fancy formatting away. So keep it very simple in there and make sure that it's not going to get messed up by that. The other thing I will recommend is, you're going to find jobs in a number of places, whether it's LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever it may be. Apply through the company website whenever possible, because you're going to find that it actually will format your resume the best rather than taking from their site. Because I will safely tell you, I love Indeed. It's great to find candidates. Some ATSs destroy it for some reason. I don't know why, but it takes all the information off. So apply through the company website as much as possible and keep it simple.
Kevin is 100% on board, and I could probably, I'm excited for a side conversation with him about Indeed, because I too share those frustrations. Always and every time apply through the website is what I would say, because there may be additional application questions or other information that's not captured when you use a third party, just if you're applying through any third party organization. And the other thing that I would say is network the heck out of it. And so your resume is really important. I'm not going to say it's not. I also know that they're not the most fun thing to do in the world. I'll be real. So network, talk to the people that are in your field, try and reach out to someone at that organization and see what they're looking for. If there's anything that's not listed on the job description, although realistically, most of it should be, and have other people take a look at your resume. Once you spent 2 or 3 hours on it, you get blind. You just do. So take breaks, walk away. And as Kevin said, keep it simple. I want black and white. Do not add graphics. Do not add pictures. Do not add a fancy border. For the love of goodness, don't waste your time on the optics. Focus on the content.
And one other quick point I would say is, don't be afraid to have multiple versions of your resume. If you're interested in a variety of directions in cyber, tailor your resume to the role, even if all it is changing the order of where things are at. just remember which resume you submit to which position. You might want to track it. Otherwise, it's going to be a little awkward later on. But definitely don't feel bad to have multiple versions based on the type of role that you're applying for. It may actually increase your chances.
Yeah, I definitely want to foot stomp that. Multiple versions are great. You know what I mean? And you know, at I3, we want all the graphics and dad jokes at the top. I'm kidding. We don't want. I want to go with what Kevin and Maureen said. Definitely keep it simple. You know what I'm saying? Like, keep it simple. Highlight yourself. Like, literally tell your story. Like, you know what I'm saying? If somebody asks you for your 30-second elevator pitch, have it. You know what I'm saying? Whatever, who I am, what I'm going to do, and why I should be picked for this position as quickly as possible. So if you look at the job rec, it says you need 8 years experience in, you know, IAM or RMF work. Have that listed at the top. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. Have 10 years experience RMF. You know what I'm saying? And worked at places such as DISA and JFSQ, whatever the case is. List the stuff out as much as you possible. Bottom line up front. Have that part there and tell the story clean and consistently. One of the best resumes I've seen was a guy coming out of the Army, and he credited the Army for doing his resume for him, but it told such a perfect story from beginning to end of the work he had done and how it like escalated upon each other. And just try to tell that story. And as Kevin was saying, as Maureen foot stomp, and I think everybody would agree, that multiple versions are great because you're not trying to apply a RMF resume to a pen testing job, right? Or a pen testing job to a threat intelligence job. And while they have some crossover, you want to be specific to that position. Mapping it to that position is so key, super key.
Wonderful. Hot tip for anybody, I recommend jobscan.co for anyone looking to match up their resume. There are lots of similar resources out there. That's a good starting place if you're researching ATS systems for the first time. Another common question, are cover letters still required? Are they a part of this industry? If so, what should you include in a cover letter?
I'll jump in there. I love a cover letter. I know that it depends on the position, but when I deal with internships, especially, there are so many candidates, and quite honestly, the backgrounds can be really, really similar. So take that cover letter and show off why you want this, but it also offers an opportunity for you to address any gaps that may be, or especially if you're a career changer, it gives you the opportunity to address that and demonstrate and talk about what you've done in the past. That being said, they may not be the best for every role. It really depends on the role and the situation. I would say for internships and things like that, I 100% recommend it. As you get into a more advanced or experienced role, up to you. I think they're always worth the time. They really can help fill in some gaps and demonstrate additional interest and answer questions before a recruiter can have them, right? You can address, like, maybe there's a gap in your resume. Why did you transition from being a professional chef to cyber? Like, how did that happen? Like, that's going to look a little bit different on a resume. So take the opportunity and take 10, 15 minutes to put it on paper.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's something to be said about cover letters. And I'm a big person. I love cover letters, but when you write a cover letter, make sure it's relevant to the position that you're applying for. Sometimes I see people that'll put jokes in there, but the joke really doesn't hit. And I'm reading about paragraph in, I'm thinking, what does this have to do with the position, and why are they actually putting this on there? So again, time, lots of applications, lots of stuff on there. Make sure you're putting your high impact statements on that cover letter and addressing those things on your resume that you think someone might pull out. Gaps in your resume, experiences that you might have that you maybe can't draw out in the resume with a bullet, things to that extent.
I would say don't rely solely on the cover letter, because some organizations are not going to look at it. So if you write a great cover letter, but then your resume excludes all this great information you mentioned, you may defeat the purpose. So keep in mind, who you're applying for and what their process looks like. A thing I always recommend to candidates before you apply to role, do reconnaissance, just like you're in cyber. Do your recon, know what it's like, what people are expecting, what's coming in. I've worked with applicant tracking systems that, where your cover letter ended up, it went in like 3 folders down. I never saw one because they got hidden because of the tracking system. So, do your research ahead of time, know how they're set up, because I think you'll find some companies are reading them, some companies it gets hidden somewhere.
Man, y'all are great. I'm taking down some notes here. But nah, seriously, like the cover letter piece, I would say I like the cover letter. It humanizes the person, right? You know what I'm saying? Whatever. So when you look at 30,000 applications, I know some companies are getting to 300, within a couple of minutes, they can kind of blend together, right? And you're trying your best to figure out who's the best candidate for this, right? And you may find somebody who's like, man, I just need a shot, right? You know what I'm saying? And that they don't have all the experience, but that little extra piece of information that they're giving and the background and stuff that they give, you're talking to another person on the other side of the screen. And so hiring manager is a person just like you are, right? And so you kind of can humanize that experience where it's like, man, something about this person's experience, I think they deserve, an opportunity to come in here and learn, right? You know what I'm saying? So take the time to do that, but utilize the advice of what everybody said. What Wilfredo said, like be careful with your dad jokes and other stuff put on the cover letter may not hit the way you want to. As Kevin said, don't rely on that. And your resume has bullets all off and it's not formatted and it went through the ATS and got chewed up, whatever. You know what I'm saying? As Maureen mentioned, saying whatever. I do agree. Cover letters can be really great to kind of help you to stand out a little extra.
Kevin mentioned something that I think it's kind of interesting. And there's a person that I'm familiar with and I'm actually, sort of in contact with named Jason, who his mantra is, job hunt like a hacker. And I think that's sort of interesting because it's in reality, that is the steps of hacking, right? Doing your reconnaissance and understanding who's who in the zoo for a company. Maureen hit it the best when she said networking might be your best bet when it comes to getting into some of these organizations. And if you can job hunt like a hacker, you might be able to get in contact with someone that could potentially get your resume to the top of someone's list, right? And so you have all these resources that are out there, LinkedIn, Google, where you can really act as a hacker and get a lot of information about the company that you're trying to potentially work for. Obviously, don't hack the company that you're trying to work for, but do the due diligence and trying to act like a hacker and getting the information and the reconnaissance that you can.
Hey, can I say, Wilfredo, can you put that on a t-shirt? Like,
yeah, I think Jason Blanchard.
Jason has t-shirts.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm familiar with him. Yeah, I think he actually has t-shirts, and they do a really great podcast on Discord. I think it is.
That's awesome.
You can drop in.
And that's Jason Blanchard with Black Hills Information Security. He's awesome. So.
Next question, it looks like we have a lot of potential career transitioners in our audience today who have had long careers in other industries before trying to make the jump to cyber. Do you think that age is a factor in the hiring space in cybersecurity? And any tips for marketing something from a completely disparate industry into cybersecurity?
I'll take
wish age was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
I wish age wasn't the problem, but unfortunately, there are some people out there that will look at a resume and they will discount it because of the amount of experience that's in there. It's just an unfortunate matter of the folks that are out there. I think that's one of the things going back to your recon, knowing what companies are looking at and recognizing what's feasible within that. And then going back to what we talked before with resumes, though, if you are pivoting careers and what you've gone back, let's say you've gone and you've done a training, you've done a degree, keep adding on to that. Like, don't feel like, the degree, great, the certification is great, but keep adding on to it. Do all these other things outside of that and highlight those areas because, if you're changing careers, I'm not going to necessarily see all the stuff you might have done otherwise. Like, make sure we include all that information as well.
Yeah, and where I was going to sit was basically exactly what you said. I truly don't look for age or I don't even require birth date when we're looking at resumes or anything to that degree. But the reality is, in your resume, it's going to highlight, okay, you might have been doing this job for X amount of years and now you're transitioning. Where I would say in your resume is don't focus on the 20 years of this other position. Take what you gathered that's relevant to this new position that you're getting in those 20 years of experience and apply it to this new position in your resume bullets. Put those bullets out there that are going to make me understand, okay, you did 20 years in sales, but in those 20 years, you were doing IT help desk things. You were doing things to help your team automate their processes. You were setting up Kibana instances, all these different things that were helping your team aggregate data. There's a lot of skills that I think that a lot of other roles have that really directly relate to cyber. And I've hired, teachers. I've also hired people that work from grocery markets, right? And so they've all have different skills that they bring to the table that really sort of apply to the position that I'm looking for.
I would add on to that too, and think about you when we talked about think like a hacker. Oftentimes in cybersecurity, we get people can get caught up in this. Oh, I'm going to be SOC analyst. I'm going to be cyber threat or something like that. There are so many areas in cybersecurity that need some form of technical knowledge, and there are great opportunities to come in and build it. And so I would recommend that if you are transitioning from another career, look at what are the bridges between what you've done in the past and how you came into cyber, because those are going to be areas that you should be targeting to get your foot in the door. Your foot in the door is not going to be most likely penetration testing as your first job. Realistically, you need some more experience than that. Not for all jobs, there are entry level for that. but it really should be about finding what makes the best use of the skills that you have from your previous role and identifying the positions that are a good match and get your foot in the door. There's a couple of different approaches to what entry level looks like in cyber. I'm sure we'll get to that. But I would say, don't think about, oh, I want to be a pen tester. I want to do this. There's so many amazing roles that take really great use of the knowledge of cyber. Product marketing alone is something I never would have thought, but really a strong technical understanding of cybersecurity is required if you're going to be marketing a cybersecurity product or company. So look at some of those opportunities to take the skills that you have from your previous position and apply them and make that gap, bridge that gap.
Yeah, and the bridge is a great comment because there might be a role between the role you're at and the role you want to get to. And as Maureen was mentioning, cyber is involved in everything. I don't care what role you're in. Cyber is going to touch it in some capacity. So recognize that that's going to happen, and also recognize that if you're in a company that does cyber, even if you're not in a cyber role, there's probably people you can learn from. So you expand beyond whatever role you're in, and don't be afraid to start, maybe in something else and just expand in the company you're at.
Yeah, and if I could just piggyback real quick, I keep picking this position. I don't know how I keep ended up here, but it is amazing. I really appreciate job transitioners. Whatever. It's a hard thing to do, right? Transition your job, and I have a lot of respect for people who do it. It's not simple, right? It's not. But take a humble pride in the fact that you have experience, right? Whether it was at Target, it was at Publix, it was at, a school teacher, you have amazing experience that you generated and built, and you just have to understand how to talk about it. Like, again, telling your story, right? So brand that into, I had a leadership role, I was a lead, cashier at this point in time. I dealt with over 100 customers a day, whatever. I can translate that into, like, we have to deal with vendors, external vendors have to come in. So you're able to actually maintain and keep order, when you're dealing with a bunch of different people doing a bunch of different things at the same time. If you're a teacher, that means you can break down complex concepts to people who understand nothing, right? You have kids who are learning for the first time Common Core math, right? So if you can teach that, you can definitely teach somebody in cyber, right? And so with that, it's skill sets that you can take, and you need to have a pride about it, literally a humble pride about it. Understand you can learn more, but be proud in what you've built and be able to look and say, hey, this is leadership, this is management, this is communication skills, and I can apply that into this job, right?
So Maureen got us started on a topic that I want to make sure we get to before the end of the panel. And we see lots of quote unquote entry-level jobs listing 2 to 5 years of experience required. How do you break into those entry-level roles, find them, and justify your experience, even if it's not, as I said before, in a paid cyber role, to be eligible for that entry-level job?
I'm going to jump on that bomb right away because it's something I'm really passionate about. And so what I found in previous positions, talking to a lot of hiring managers, is that there's 2 different approaches to cybersecurity. One is that hiring managers expect that you have previous experience in IT, and that's what you're using to qualify for this cybersecurity role. And there's another train of thought that says, no, cybersecurity is its own specific discipline. And so there's a way to get in there. We've talked so much about opportunities to learn, and your experience, I think oftentimes when you're applying to a job, and it can depend on your background as well, is you have to have paid experience in your head is what you're thinking. And that's not the case. So those home labs that we've all talked about, we've talked about different opportunities. There's open source projects that you can contribute to. There's some really great ones out there, especially in cyber threat intelligence. And so take the time and focus on those. And the reason why those are so helpful, especially, is also because of the networking. Not only are you getting the hands-on application of the skills, but you're getting to learn from people who've probably been doing this for years and are really passionate about this. And those are networking opportunities as well as learning opportunities. So yes, there are real internship positions out there, but there is a huge demand for those. And so really separating yourself from the pack by doing that extra work on your own is where you're going to get in. And network, I would put that in, I want to just have like a giant stamp on my forehead. If I could get a face tattoo, I would totally probably get network, and I'd be really awkward. But that's what I would say. It's the number one way to do it and to overcome those obstacles.
I'm with that face tattoo. Let's go make it happen. But I wholeheartedly agree. Networking and putting yourself out there in many different ways, as Maureen said eloquently. Seriously, it was definitely a great response to it. And I don't have much to add, but I will say the networking aspect is where I want to foot stomp. a lot of times it's not what you know, but who you know. You know what I mean? If people can get an understanding of, man, this person is somebody who's been around. They did this open source project, the OSINT project. They're working with some people trying to learn stuff in OSINT. They're, doing the CTFs. I know he was on my team, or she was on my team, and they're in these different places. All that stuff is great for being able to break into the door. And not only are you building up experience, you're still getting some level of experience. But as Maureen said, you're also getting a networking aspect with it too, which is super important for getting in the door.
Yeah, and another point to that, sorry, Terry, I know that we mentioned when we were, prepping for this summit that i3 Technologies has a nice blurb at the beginning of their job descriptions and say, hey, you don't have to have all the skills that I'm listing out here. Just apply because we want to talk to you. And I think that's something that should be highlighted here. So you should probably highlight i3 Technologies in that regard. I think that's amazing. I've left ever since we talked about that. I left them like, man, that's amazing. That's great.
I really appreciate that alley-oop, man. Yeah, we try to put in our resume on our hiring material that, look, you're perfect who you are. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. As long as you're looking to learn and grow, you know what I'm saying? Whatever. All we want is to hear your story. So help us tell your story. You know what I'm saying? Let us hear it and just apply. Like, don't take the pressure off yourself. You're not going to get all the skills. You're not going to have all of them. Some of those gaps will be filled by coming here, right? And so we want people to understand that we're not trying to stump the chump, we're not trying to scare you away. We really just want qualified people who are passionate, who love and want to learn more about cyber to come in and work with us, right? And so we really try to take that edge off by just putting in a quick blurb on everything about how we don't want you to add this extra pressure on yourself to be perfect, right? Thanks for that, Wilfredo.
Yeah, I was saying, keep in mind, with most job descriptions are a wish list. Managers know they're not getting everything that's on there. They're not expecting candidates, everything on there. So don't feel like if you're missing a bullet or two, you shouldn't apply. And I know that's a thing that definitely gets some people. If you feel like if it's a role you're interested in, you feel like you can contribute, make your pitch, put it out there. Obviously, make sure you're highlighting experience that's relevant to the role and everything like that. But don't be afraid to apply because it says a certain amount of experience. You'll find a lot of managers, they say, I want 5 years experience. Well, they see somebody with 2 who has all this amazing experience. They're still going to talk to them. I mean, just put it out there. Just make sure you highlight the experience relevant to the role, and you'll get the hits that way too.
Shoot, and to Kevin's point, real quick, I was gonna say, my bad, Maureen. Go ahead. What you got?
No, you're good. I'm just gonna add a caveat. So yours is probably I'll end. You go ahead.
Are you be the closer, right? So just real quick, I was gonna say, to Kevin's point, just with that, you may apply for one job, and Maureen kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. You may apply for one job, and thinking that, hey, this is the job I want. And the hiring manager says, like, well, not for this job, but man, we got this other thing coming up, whatever, this would be great for you, so please still apply or whatever, as he said, because it may not be the one you were looking for, but just in seeing your experience, you're in the door already or in their mind. So you may be looked at for another position you didn't even know was out there.
Absolutely. I would echo that because I do that all the time as a recruiter. I love seeing someone who's absolutely amazing. It may not be perfect for the role that I have, but I know there's something coming. And so I want to talk. I mean, my job is to talk to people. And so I will always try and find an excuse to do that if I can, if I think you're really great. And if it's not a fit now, it could be down the line. The one thing that I will caution against is if you meet one of 7 bullets, and that is not meant to be rude at all. I just don't want you to take your time on something where you just genuinely are not there yet. That's aspirational. Take that stuff and say, this is what I'm going to focus on because this is the job I want. I 100% encourage you to do that. But I also don't want that rejection fatigue to set in, and I know that it can. So I would say make sure that you meet the majority of the requirements. I'm not saying like 90%, but a solid like 70 to 80 before you're applying, because I don't want you to take the time and then just keep getting those rejections, because that's hard as a candidate. We're people too, and we know that. So we're always rooting for you. We want you to apply. And I would definitely, at Dragos, our requirements are kept literally 4 to 5 bullets, no education requirements, no certifications, etc. But that is not industry standard. And I know that. So make sure you fit 70 to 80-ish, apply, and heck yeah, we want to talk to you. Just give us a reason to.
Well, it is clear from the Slack channel and our Q&A that we have barely made a dent in all the information people want to know. So just to be clear, that conversation will continue in the Slack channel. I'm happy to keep that going. But with our remaining 5 minutes, I'd like to give each of our panelists a minute to include anything that we didn't get to today, anything that they would like to reiterate, and if it's the one takeaway they want to make sure that you hear today. Terry, if you're okay with it, since you said you were last the whole panel, we'll start with you.
Yes, Yes. No. The only thing I'll foot stomp, I'll be 100% honest. The only thing I'll foot stomp is branding yourself. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. Like, take the time now. You'll be surprised at what that will lead to for you. So by, again, watching blogs, reading blogs, writing your own stuff. Again, using the platforms, the social media platforms and things to put yourself out there. Do not be afraid to do it. Do YouTube channels. Even you put it on private, for yourself starting off. Just do some stuff that will put out there that what you're talking about, and it will save you. You know what I'm saying? I promise you, in the long run, you'll spare yourself long interviews and other things, because people will see and be like, I want this person. Like they've been talking about this for 6 months, a year. They're great. You know what I mean? And you're now sought after versus you being the seeker. And I think branding yourself is super important and helps you to learn at the same time.
First of all, I think we also need a foot stomp t-shirt, by the way, Terry. I think we need one of those, but we didn't get into it much, about the actual interview process. But I will tell you, just from the students that I've talked to, the folks that are getting the new grads, interview for jobs you don't want. And I know that sounds crazy, but I've gotten so many candidates that really struggle on the presentation side of things. They're not used to interviewing. It's not a natural thing to interview, honestly. So get out there, get interviewing, but treat every single job you interview like it's the best job in the world. Because I'll tell you what, that job you interviewed for just to get experience probably turns into the best job you ever had. But the idea is get out there, get experience interviewing. Do not wait till you're looking for your dream job and you're interviewing for your dream job for it to be the first interview you've done in 6 years. Go out there, you can go interview for any job out there. You're going to get experience interviewing, but get that experience, because I'll tell you what, presentation and communication skills knock more candidates out than technical.
Yeah, and to Kevin's point, when you're doing that, you get a sense of what the questions that could be potentially asked in the role that you actually do want, right? And as you're going through, you can practice your answers, you can practice your methodology, take a step back, and really, the way that I like to treat my interviews is sort of a conversation with the applicants. But I really appreciate the applicants who take me on a story and I sort of drift away thinking about when they were stopping that dark side ransomware gang, because they're really highlighting that in their interview, right? So if you're doing sort of those things, talk about the exciting stuff, because at the end of the day, we get 30 minutes for the most time to screen, maybe an hour for a technical interview. That's not a lot of time to explain everything you might have done in your career, right? So really highlight those war stories. I like to call them war stories, because I think that makes a good conversation, and it really shows those soft skills that you can communicate effectively a cyber issue or a cyber threat to either a policymaker, an executive, the board, whoever it is. And those skills really do matter when it comes to incidents and cybersecurity.
I'm going to end with the networking tattoo, hopefully now tattooed in your brain. And then I would also say, don't give up. It is hard to get your first entry job. And that's not just in cybersecurity, that's in any industry. It's hard. And it's meant to be hard, because if you were going to give up easily, you don't belong here, because cybersecurity is hard no matter what role you're in. So please don't give up. Please talk to people. This is one of the most inviting and inclusive communities that I've ever been a part of. And so we're all rooting for you, and hopefully you'll get to work at one of our amazing organizations soon.
I just saw a comment in Slack that said they were going to rubber ducky your networking USB to their brain. So I think that's the new title we're giving it. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. We've heard some amazing nuggets of information here today. Again, the conversation will continue in Slack. We'll try to get to as many questions as I can. And these people all have day jobs, so we will get to what we can do and share some advice in there. Thank you again, and I will turn it back over to David.
Thanks, Caroline. Also, thanks, Terry, Kevin, Wilfredo, Maureen. Really appreciate it. Just, while you guys were talking, I was in the Slack channel trying to pin all the questions so that you could more easily find them. It turned out I probably should have pinned all the things that were not questions, because I was just not able to keep up in some of the parts. There's incredible engagement in your hallway channel right now. So I hope you have some time set aside for catching up with things. So very much appreciate it. Thank you for being here.